the Capitol building of the United States of America. What a majestic edifice. This is one of a very few structures which is recognized the world over. When one sees a picture of this building in virtually any land, they know it's the American seat of government. This grand structure has been the scene of some of the most profound moments in America's history. In its 2 centuries of use, this building, these walls, these grounds, they've welcomed the voices of some of our greatest heroes. This building has survived some of America's most desperate and foreboding dangers, and some of the most important issues of American life and culture have been decided within these walls. Truly, this building has many diverse stories to tell. There are stories reflecting its architectural heritage, its political heritage, and its artistic heritage. But especially interesting are the stories reflecting its rich spiritual heritage.
Many visitors of our nation's capital would be shocked to discover that the faith of our founding fathers has indeed been chiseled in stone throughout our nation's capital. But why has this irrefutable evidence of our great spiritual heritage been covered up and forgotten? Discover our nation's godly history in the American Heritage Series. America, this is your heritage.
The U.S. Capitol is absolutely one of the most recognizable buildings in the world. Virtually a citizen of any nation will recognize the U.S. Capitol. In America, we've been taught that that's one of the greatest symbols of secularism that we have in the nation. It's a symbol of secular government. If you walk inside the Capitol, you're immediately confronted with all sorts of religious artwork, religious statues, religious symbolism. Religion is all over that building, and it's just something that doesn't seem to get outside the building. People on the outside don't have that perception. We'll begin the tour near the main public entrance on the 2nd floor, leading into the Rotunda of the United States Capitol. When the Rotunda first opened to the public in 1824, one of the first things to catch the eye here inside the Rotunda, both then and now, are the massive oil paintings which adorn the walls. There are 8 paintings. Each measures 14 feet by 20 feet, and each depicts an important event bearing on our history. The 4 pictures here on the east side of the Rotunda are from the age of exploration and colonization, and they were placed in the Rotunda between 1840 and 1855. This one is of Columbus landing in the Western world in 1492, and it depicts the service held following his landing. This one is of De Soto discovering the Mississippi River in 1541. This one is of the baptism of Pocohontas at Jamestown, Virginia in 1613. And here are the Pilgrims in 1620 praying before departing from Holland to America. Already, in just these 4 pictures, we see 2 prayer meetings and a baptism, an early indicator of the religious heritage we'll find throughout this building. As you're in the Rotunda and you see those massive paintings across there, there's 2 sides of the Rotunda with paintings, one with the Age of Independence and one with the Age of Exploration and Discovery. They're the biggest paintings you've ever seen in your life. There's 8 paintings in there. They're 14 feet high, each painting, and they're 20 feet long. So they're really life-size paintings of events that happened in American history. But the 4 from the Age of Exploration and Discovery are just loaded up with religious symbolism. And what's cool is they were all commissioned by Congress specifically to recapture the heritage of America.
Wow.
The congressional writings that came out when they did each painting, for example, with the baptism of Pocahontas, they talk about how important it is to know our Christian heritage and our Christian history, and so Pocahontas is showing that Christian history. I mean, this is Congress, commissioned by Congress to do these paintings to recapture the Christian heritage of the nation. And as you go to the painting of the Pilgrims, which is a really cool painting, they're on their way to America, the centerpiece of that painting is this huge Bible that's opened. And because the paintings are so large in the Capitol, you can walk up to that painting, you can look up at the painting, you can literally read the words on the pages of the Bible. I mean, it is painted that minutely. And as you read that Bible, they did it that way so that you would know that it was a Geneva Bible. Now, most Americans don't know the difference of the Geneva and anything else, but that is a specific Bible. It's considered the Bible of civil liberty in America. And that Bible that the Pilgrims brought and that was used all over the colonies, that Geneva Bible, so many things that we have today came out of the Pilgrims' use of that Bible, because they've come out of the Dark Ages. In the Dark Ages, illiteracy was really high. You were not allowed to read the Bible for yourself. It was not in the common language. It was considered to be too holy of a book to allow common people to get to it. So now they're back into the Bible because of what happened in the Reformation. because the Reformation, a huge theme of the Reformation, it was not Protestantism versus Catholic. It was very simply, we got to get back to the Word of God. And so in both branches of the Christian church, there was that emphasis. Catholic monks saying we got to get back to the Word of God, get it to the common people. Anglicans and the Protestant side saying we got to get back to the Word of God. So this emphasis on getting back to the Word of God. Well, when the Pilgrims come to America, the Bible is really a pretty new book to them. I mean, mankind has not been in that book for 1,000 years to speak of. And we know from the records of their governors, we know from the records of their elders, that they would spend hours a day reading that book.
Wow.
And they didn't read that book like it was a devotional book for Sunday morning. They read that book like it was a guidebook for everyday living. Let's begin with this one, the embarkation of the Pilgrims in 1620. Here they are, kneeling in prayer, committing their endeavor to God, and notice the Bible around which they're gathered. That Bible is a Geneva Bible. The Geneva Bible was printed in 1560 and became the favorite of those who were called Pilgrims and Separatists, Dissenters and Puritans. These groups believed that there was much corruption in the organized church of the 16th century and that many of the church practices had even become anti-biblical. They objected to those corrupt practices, hence the title Dissenters. Some dedicated themselves completely unto God and separated themselves from the church and the questionable church practices, and consequently they were called Separatists, while others sought to cleanse and purify the church from within, and this group was called Puritans. I hold here one of those Bibles which the early colonists so frequently brought to America's shores. This particular Geneva Bible was printed over 400 years ago, and inscribed in the front of this Bible is a history of a family from the early 1600s, giving their marriage dates, their name, their birth dates of the children, and so forth. By the way, this Bible, despite its size, is actually called a pocket Bible. This is because previous editions of the Bible were huge and unwieldy. In fact, many were termed pulpit Bibles because they were, in fact, often chained to the pulpit of churches. But with the Geneva Bible, a person could now not only individually possess, but now could also read for himself the Word of God without having to rely on a king or some church official to interpret what the Bible said or meant. The most unique feature of the Geneva Bible, and the feature which so impacted American culture, was the marginal commentaries. These commentaries were largely the work of reformers who had been driven from Great Britain during the reigns of Bloody Mary and James I, two monarchs who were advocates of the divine right of kings and of the authority of the state over the church. The commentaries in this Bible reflected Reformation thought, and they took an anti-autocratic tone toward both church leaders and state leaders. With such open criticism, the Pilgrims became the target of harsh religious and government persecution. Seeking a place where they could serve God according to their interpretation of the Scriptures, the Pilgrims arrived in America in November 1620. There's one other painting here in the Rotunda in which it is believed that the Geneva Bible had a direct influence. It was here, the baptism of Pocohontas. Pocohontas was one of the first converts to Christianity in the New World, and she was led to Christ by John Rolfe, who later became her husband, with the Geneva Bible being apparently influential in her conversion. In this picture, Pocahontas is being baptized in 1613 by the Reverend Alexander Whitaker, and on her baptism, Pocahontas changed her name to Rebecca, wanting a biblical name to accompany her through her new life.
Many visitors of our nation's capital would be shocked to discover that the faith of our founding fathers has indeed been chiseled in stone throughout our nation's capital. But why has this irrefutable evidence of our great spiritual heritage been covered up and forgotten? Discover our